StrayAllDay.com.
You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. What is that? That is a go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And we put all this together into one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy. We wrote a hardcover book on the subject, and we have a daily masterclass. That's the thing you're listening to right now. Yes, this is daily, and yes, this is a masterclass. Don't dare call this show a podcast. It is all called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is playing the game within the game. Now, obviously we know that this show is called Work on Your Game, and you probably have listened to the episode where I told you about learning to play the game, which is episode number 1314. The hustlers out there, and everybody listening to this, you got hustler in you. Maybe you haven't tapped into it yet, but learning how to play the game is a really important part of being a hustler, meaning knowing what the game is and making your adjustments as necessary. Again, that's episode 1314. In episode number 1210, I told you to not complain and play the game. There are some elements of the game that you will be able to adjust to your liking. You'll be able to mold into your own vision of what you want them to be. But there are also some elements of the game that you won't be able to change, and you need to understand those. You need to be able to delineate and understand, all right, these are the elements I can change. These are the parts I can't change. Those of you who are religious, you know the serenity prayer, right? Accept the things that I cannot change and the courage to change the things that I can. In episode 1210, we explain this in a more secular way, okay? Not complaining, but playing the game and making your adjustments to the parts you can't change and adjusting the parts that you can change. So if you haven't listened to those two episodes, again, that's 1210 and 1314. Today's episode, we're talking about playing the game within the game. I want you to understand that since there are so many games that are being played out here in life, and when I say games, I don't mean like somebody tricking you or fooling you or you not knowing what's going on. When I say the game, being an athlete is a game. Having a podcast is a game, or a master class like this one. Writing books is a game. Starting a business is a game. Going to school is a game. Being a professional skateboarder is a game. Being an equestrian horseback rider is a game. Being a coach, being a parent, all of those are games, and you can work on your game. The beauty of this title and the beauty of this brand is that everybody is in some form of game, and we can all work on our games and get better in some way. And what I want you to understand is that in some aspects, which I'm going to address today, there is a game within the game that many people are not aware of. They're only looking at it on the surface, but we got to get into the deeper game so that you know what you really need to do to get to where you want to go. So since there are so many games being played out here in life, there's some things that you need to understand. And the main point that I want you to internalize based on today's class is that life is not a straight line, fair meritocracy. It is not. You heard me correctly. Now, those of you, maybe everybody here knows what a meritocracy is, but just in case anybody does not know what a meritocracy is, I'm going to go ahead and look up the definition and make sure everybody's on the same page here. Meritocracy is designed as government or the holding of power by people selected on the basis of their ability. In other words, a meritocracy is when the best performers make the most money. A meritocracy is when the best books are the ones that are the best sellers. A meritocracy is when the best coaches have the most clients and are the most well-known, or the best players are the ones who are getting the most playing time. Now, we're going to get into some disclaimers when we talk about that, but in generally speaking, life is not a meritocracy. Everybody hear what I just said? Now, I said it 3 times already. I'm going to keep saying it, and I will say this many times after today's episode, okay? So any of you out there, and there are many who have come to me, and often many young people come to me and they say, well, Dre, I feel like I'm better than this person. I'm better than that person. I put in this much work. I put in this much time. I'm giving this much effort, but I'm not getting the kind of results that I want, or I'm not getting the kind of kickback that I feel like I deserve. I'm not getting the ROI from my efforts. Why am I not? Even though I think I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and darn it, people like me, and I'm putting the time in. Why am I not getting it? Here's why. Because life is not a meritocracy. In some ways it is, but in many ways it is not. And one of the biggest disservices that get done to us as youth is we get taught by our parents, by our coaches, and by some not worth their weight in gold, motivators and speakers and teachers and whoever, influencers, that just being the best or whatever you consider to be the best, because best is a very relative term, that being the best is going to lead to you getting all the results. That is not true. I was just in a clubhouse room today, not speaking, but listening. And there was a guy in there who said, now I wasn't even in the room for that long, but he made a really good point. He said, the products that last and the companies that last are not the ones that are the best products, but the ones that are the best selling products. What was he talking about? The game within the game. Having a good product is a good thing because people are probably not going to keep buying it if it's not a good product. But if you're not good at selling that product, someone with a lesser product could overtake you and take all the money off the table that should have been yours simply because they understood the game within the game, which is selling the product. You only understood the surface game, which is having the product. You understand? Now, I'm just giving you that as an example, but let's get into our points here so you'll understand it even better. Today's topic, once again, is playing the game within the game. Number one, the professional speaking business, for example, is not about giving speeches. If you want to be a professional speaker, you don't have to be great at giving speeches. You got to be okay. You got to have some ability. You got to have a speech to give. You don't have to be amazing. And the best professional speakers that you know of, or whoever you consider quote unquote the best, they are not necessarily the best presenters. The ideas industry is not about having the best insights. The people who are given credit for having the best ideas are not the ones actually with the best ideas. Whoever gets the Nobel Prizes or whatever awards get given out to people for having great ideas and being great thinkers, or they get booked to give TED Talks and all that, they're not necessarily the best thinkers or the people with the best ideas in the world. Even though they make you think that that's what it is, that is absolutely not what it is. The modeling industry, for example, is not about being pretty. All right, the most famous models are not the prettiest people. I don't know how, I don't know how we quantify pretty, but I'm sure there are some people out there who are subjectively prettier than some of the most famous models in the world that you've seen. Like, yo, you're prettier than her. Or they're the best singers out there. The best singer out there is probably somebody working at Walmart. All right, they ain't even got a contract. Nobody even knows who they are, but they're an amazing singer. They can sing better than Rihanna, Beyonce, and Taylor Swift put together. Book publishers do not care about how good your writing is. Oh, you thought book publishing was about the quality of your writing? No, it's not. I want you to understand something. Most industries, and in most industries, subjective opinions determine who gets on and who doesn't. So in most industries, skill is not the number one aspect when they're regarding who is going to get the opportunity and who is not. Most industries do not make their decisions based on who's good. Some industries, like sports, are closer to a meritocracy. Sports is probably the closest thing you're going to get to a meritocracy. Because in sports, skills determine the winners and the losers much more than in many other areas. Because in sports, everybody gets on the court. We got a scoreboard. Everyone agrees that that is the objective thing that we're going to determine wins and losses by is the scoreboard. Everyone agrees on that. In modeling, book publishing, in the speaking business, in the ideas industry, what's the scoreboard? We don't know. Everybody has different aims. Not everyone's going after the same thing, and people pretty much don't agree as to what makes one person better than another. We don't even know. But in sports, everyone agrees. When you turn on a sports match in the middle of the game, what's the first thing you want to know? What's the score? All right? Because we all agree that the score determines who the winner and who the loser is. So sports is the closest thing. So any athletes out there, any coaches, any parents of athletes, sports is the closest thing to a meritocracy you will ever see. As soon as you're done with sports, it's not a meritocracy anymore. As soon as you're done with sports, there's a game within the game that you got to learn how to play. And if you don't know that that game exists, you're probably losing. In many places in life, your skill level doesn't even matter that much until people know who you are. They know that you exist. People don't know that you exist. Who cares how good you are? Does it even matter? Who are you good to? It's a question I want you to sit on. Let's move on to point number 2. And I'm going to explain this as we move on. Today's topic, once again, is playing the game within the game. So, what is this game that I'm talking about? What is the game within the game that I mean? The game that I'm talking about is you being seen, heard, and known. The game that I'm talking about is a game of sales and notoriety. This is the game of being known, liked, and trusted. The game is getting on the inside so that people can hear you and see you and pay attention to you. The game is, as to paraphrase what my brother Wes Pfeiffer said the last time he was on the show, when I asked him about how a college basketball program quantifies how good a coach is. Because how can you gauge how good somebody is at coaching? I mean, if you give a great coach horrible players, that team's only going to be so good. And if you give a mediocre coach great players, the team's going to be amazing. Does that mean the coach was actually good? No. So how do you know? And Wes's answer was this. He said 80% of getting a job in coaching is not about how good of a coach you are, because there's no way to really measure how good somebody is at coaching, because everybody has different sets of circumstances. He said getting the job is about 3 questions. Here they are. Write them down. Number 1, do I know you? And these are in order of importance. Number 1, do I know you? Number 2, do I like you? And number 3, are you good? Do you notice that the good part is only 3rd in priority? Because if people don't know you and or don't like you, it doesn't matter how good you are. In that order, everybody. I hope you are taking notes. Actors and actresses. I heard someone say this. It was a book that I was reading. I believe it was one of Jonah Berger's books that I was reading recently. He's a professor at the University of Pennsylvania, also an author. And he said in his research for one of the books he was doing that actors and actresses get chosen for jobs on movies or TV shows or Netflix documentaries or series or whatever. They get chosen for jobs based on who has more social media followers. So if I'm a casting director and I'm trying to choose between actor A and actor B, and I don't know which one I want to cast in the lead role for this new show that I'm putting out, the fact that actor A has 1 million followers on Instagram and actor B has only 50,000 followers on Instagram, I'm going to choose actor A because actor A is going to help my show get seen more, because I can tell my audience, hey, look, I got actor A on my show, and actor A has a fan base of 1 million people, whereas actor B has a fan base of only 50,000 people, even though actor B may be better at acting than actor A. I'm telling you that to tell you, again, not that you need to go out and get yourself famous on Instagram, but it probably won't hurt, depending on what industry you're in. This is the game, ladies and gentlemen. If people don't know you, then how are you going to do anything else? They don't know you, you can't sell them anything. They don't know you, they're not going to listen to what you're saying. Actors and actresses getting chosen based off of this. Books. You know what publishing deals are based on? Not how good of a writer you are. Nobody gives a damn if you're a good writer. Listen, book publishers when I did my book, Work on Your Game, there's an editor that I worked with at the publisher, and she did a lot of great work editing that book. And there's also an independent editor that I personally hired and paid to work on my book as well. And then I did a whole bunch of editing myself. And I do that with every book that I put out. There's editors, and then there's my writing, then I go edit, then they edit, and then we go back and forth, then we finally get the book done, then we put it out. The point is this: when you work with a publishing company, any of you ever wants to do a publishing deal for a book, or you ever have done one, they don't really care about the quality of your writing. Here's the number one thing is they consider whether or not they're going to, as they call, option your book. In other words, they're going to put their resources into producing your book to get it on bookshelves and in Barnes and Nobles and all that stuff. It's how many books do they think you can sell? Because you got to understand something. If you really think about it, a book publishing company is not in the business of putting out great books. That's what they tell you. Now, if you go to their website, they'll say, we put out great books. Say, here's 5 of our best books ever. They'll tell you the 5 best, highest selling books they've ever had. And they'll say, these are great books. How? What are they great books based on what? Is there a measure to measure the quality of writing? No. Why are they great books? Because more people read them, and the more people read them, then they kind of get the halo effect. It must be a great book because everybody else is reading it. It's the confirmation bias. But what they're not telling you about is, for those 5 books that are their best selling ever, they don't tell you about the 500,000 books that they put out that nobody bought. The 500,000 books that didn't sell. They didn't tell you about that. Book publishers only care about how many books you can sell. The reason that I got a publishing deal was not because I was shopping myself around for a publishing deal, because I was not. I didn't need one. I didn't care about getting a publishing deal, but when one was offered to me, I took it. And we made sure the bag was right and the numbers were right, but I took it because the opportunity was there and I knew what they could bring to the table. But The reason why they were willing to work with me is because when I put my book proposal together, here's one of the things that they asked me in the book proposal. And I promise you, this is probably the most important part of the proposal. Now, I don't have a way of knowing this, and anybody who's in the publishing industry, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. They ask you on there, have you written any other books, whether they are traditionally published or self-published? If so, list all your other books and list how many of them you have sold to date. That section of my proposal is the reason why I got a publishing deal. It's the reason why I could command the kind of advance that I ended up commanding, because I had already written and sold my own books. And here's how they read that. Because they didn't care about how many books I had already sold, really, because those books are already sold. Who cares? They didn't own those books. They didn't make $1 off any of the books that I had sold up to that point. Here's what they said. This guy has a fan base of people who will go buy his next book. That's why we want to work with him. Because I don't know if any of you know, and I didn't know this actually until I talked to one of my friends who's in the publishing industry before I signed that deal. And this is what he told me. He said, Dre, they're going to help you write the book, but when that book comes out, you're not going to hear from them again. As far as selling the book, as far as getting people to go buy it, they don't do any of that. Remember, they're a publishing company. They're not a marketing company. They're not a sales company. They're a publishing company. It is your job to sell the book. I'm telling you all of that to tell you to drive home this second point here. The game within the game is you got to make sure people actually know that you exist. Being good is one thing. People knowing that you're good is a better thing. You can't judge the quality of a book until you actually read it. You can't judge the quality of somebody's music until you actually listen to it. You can't judge how pretty the model is until you actually notice the model. So what are you going to do to make sure you actually get seen in the game? That's the game within the game. Let's move on to point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is the game within the game. When people first hear this, and I think this is happening to some of you right now as you're listening to me talk, you may have a tendency to feel a little bit down about yourself when you're really realizing the gravity of this situation that I'm bringing to the forefront. You maybe feel like you've been living your entire life thinking that if you just get good, if you just work on your game and develop skill, and you're really good at what you do, everything will be great and all will be well. And here I am telling you that is absolutely not true. And that is the situation. But let me tell you what you can do with this new information, if it is indeed new to you, or any of you to whom this information is not new, yet you haven't actually been doing anything with it. And I hear this often from people on this show. They say, well, look, Dre, it's not that every episode on this show you're telling me something brand new that I never thought of or never occurred to me before, but you explain it in such a way and you're reiterating it to me, and that's worth something as well. So if I'm reiterating something to you that you already maybe had a general understanding of, but you never actually used, here's what you can do as well. Find out how to play the game. This is one of the biggest mistakes that people make. They understand that the game is there, but they never learn how to play it. They understand that being seen, heard, and known is more important than just being out there, but you got to learn how to play the damn game. Not just understand the game, but learn how to play the game. Learn how to sell. I got a book called The Seller's Mindset. You can get it at workonmygame.com/sell. Just go to workonyourgame.com. We got a list of every book. Learn how to sell. Learn how to create connections. I got a course called People Skills. We're going to be releasing that, unbundling it, and putting it out soon, maybe by the time you hear this, or shortly thereafter. Make yourself valuable to people who are already active in the game and leverage those connections. This is how you get yourself known. This is how you get your name out there. And there are a lot of people out there who have a lot of game, but nobody knows who they are. They're not getting themselves out there. You got to get yourself out in the game. People have to know that you exist. I talked about this in episode 1730, how to make more money quickly and easily without working yourself to death. Episode 1734, how to build an audience and get known without spending a ton of money on ads, or you don't even have to spend any money on ads. Again, that's episode 1734. These are all things that you need to be doing to get yourself known out here. You can't be waiting for the game to come find you. You got to go find it. I'm giving you the game. Now you got to go do something with the game. Make yourself valuable to people who are already active. Leverage those connections. Making yourself valuable means you got to share some value. If you ain't got any game, you got to have some. So working on your game is not thrown away in this situation, okay? I'm not telling you don't need game. You still got to have some game, because when you sell yourself and get known, people are going to look at you and say, okay, who the hell are you and what the hell can you do for me? If you don't have an answer, then they're going to forget about you just as quickly as they notice you. All that being said, let's recap today's class, which is playing the game within the game. There are a lot of games that every one of us plays all the time. You need to internalize that life is not a straight and fair meritocracy. Anybody who told you that was lying to you, and or they were just misinformed, and now here they are misinforming you. I'm going to fix that. Point number one, speaking business is not about giving speeches. The ideas industry is not about insights. Modeling ain't about being pretty. Book publishing is not about good writing. Most industries that are driven by subjective opinions who determine who gets on and who doesn't, they do not consider skill as their number one factor. What they consider is what you can actually do for them. Point number two, what is this game that I speak of? This is the sales and notoriety game. This is the know, like, and trust game. This is getting on the inside so they can actually notice that you're good. The game is, do I know you? Do I like you? Are you good? In that order. Actors and actresses get chosen for roles based on their social media followings these days. Why? Because social media followings help sell a TV show. Book publishing deals get handed out based on how many books you have sold, not how good your writing is. Your writing could be trash, but if people keep buying those books, you're going to get another publishing deal. Why? Because you can sell books, and the publishing industry is about selling. It is not about writing. Point number three, when people first hear this, they have a tendency to maybe feel down, that maybe you've been living your whole life thinking one way, but now it's a different way. I want you to understand something. What you need to do is not feel down about yourself. You need to be happy that now you have the insight of understanding that there's a game that you may not have been playing up to this point, but now that you know about it, you can still jump ahead of 97% of the population who either does not have this information and or will not do anything with it. You're listening to a show called Work on Your Game. It's about discipline, confidence, mental toughness, and personal initiative. Utilize those tools that you have and go learn how to play the game. Listen, most people are still not going to do it despite what I'm telling you right now today. So you still have a jump on most of the population. So you ain't losing anything. The only thing you could possibly lose is your own time by not doing anything now that I've given you the information. And from this point forward, you're responsible for what you now know. Work on your game. And oh yeah, get the seller's mindset. Go to workonyourgame.com. Right there, we got a list of all of our books that you can get. Workonyourgame.com. Get the seller's mindset. You need it in your life. We out of here. Work on your game. Dre all day.